Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1583B, and today's date is June 4th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Blackout Was Necessary, The Movement Begins Dark to Light. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Wolf Richter. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you to that interview, or you can come over to the x22report.com or newsentinel.com site. Scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side. You'll see the interview there. You can play it right on the site, or you can go to Steemit, that is steemit.com/@x22report, and you can play the interview on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, it looks like the deep state hole is getting deeper and deeper, and the deep state is getting pushed into the corner, surrounded, and they're having a huge amount of troubles. I mean, if you look at the corporate media, you wouldn't think this, but things are definitely closing in on the deep state. They're never going to let on what's really going on. They're going to keep the emotional part continually moving where they go to people's emotions, but the real information is about what's really happening here. And we see there's newly released FBI text messages that reveal the Obama White House is involved in the spying on the Trump campaign. Now, what has happened here is that, according to a report, the FBI Department of Justice began their illegal surveillance operations of the Trump campaign under direct orders of former President Obama. And this didn't originate in Russia. It originated in London in 2016. And we can see that right now, there were foreign individuals out in London pushing the idea that there was Russian collusion, pushing certain documents, trying to get people on board with this, and a series of text messages recovered by the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz between FBI lawyer Lisa Page and Special Agent Peter Strzok reveal political pressure around the same time as the Trump-Russia probe officially opened. And they were talking about how all of this was being set up, what was going on, and we see right now that they are stuck. Now, what's very interesting is that these individuals are going to be pointing fingers at each other. It already started. Comey is pointing the finger at McCabe. We already see the former head of U.S. intelligence, James Clapper. Well, he's backpedaling right now, and he admits, yeah, the United States, we went ahead and we had regime change in many different countries around the world, and he's trying to put a spin on this like it was okay to do this because we were doing it for the people. So they went into other countries and they killed civilians to put the person they wanted in government to keep their system alive, and they were doing it for us, the people. I don't think so. This has been going on for a very long time, since 1946, and they did this to about 80 countries where they meddled in the elections, they had regime change, started wars, killed many individuals, and he's trying to make it seem like this was all to help you people. Well, no, this was a central banking system. This was a deep state agenda to basically have a one world government. That's really what they were doing. And they're always trying to spin this to make it seem like it was for the people. Well, the people didn't ask for this. The people didn't say, hey, you know what? For us, can you go into other countries, remove that leader, put the leader that you want in there, and kill as many civilians and start wars in these countries because this is what we want, and have all these individuals leave their homes and become refugees where they have no place to live and destroy their homeland. No, we never wanted this. They're trying to spin this to make it seem like this is what the people wanted. Now, we see that the Inspector General, he's getting ready to release his report. It looks like it's expected June 11th. It's about a 500-page report on the Clinton email investigation, the Russian collusion, and everything else. And hopefully that's when it's coming out, and I would expect some type of an event. I would expect something to happen during this period of time for a major distraction, because they really don't want this information getting out there, and we'll have to sit back and wait to see what happens. We also see that the construction of the wall, it has started, and we see that the 14-mile section, this is the new border wall between Mexico and the United States, will include an anti-climbing plates to stop individuals from climbing the wall. The wall is going to be about 18 to 30 feet, depending on what location it's at. We also see that the construction company that was awarded all this was a Texas-based construction company, SLSCO. It was recently awarded $147 million to construct the wall. This was from the $1.6 billion down payment for a border wall that would extend across the nation's southern border. And we see right now that this is moving forward right now. And remember, this, when we go back to the Q post, this wall is just not a wall for illegals. This is a wall to stop human trafficking. This is a wall to stop the gun running. This is the wall to stop the deep state from pushing their agenda. That's why the wall is being built. We see out in Italy, everything is changing, and it looks like the movement is accelerating across the globe. Italy's anti-immigrant League Party, which on Friday formed a populist movement in coalition with the Five Star Party, and whose leader, Matteo Salvini, stepped into his new job as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of the Interior on Friday. He is pledging now to deport hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants. Salvini's League and the Five Star Movement struck a deal on a coalition government which will work towards putting Italians first. I think we've heard this before, where it's Americans first, and now they're saying these are Italians first. George Soros, well, he's flipping out about this, and he's saying this is unacceptable. We need open borders. We can't have countries saying Italy first, Germany first. We can't have this. And this is going to spread to other countries. We've seen how the European countries reacted to immigrants flowing into their countries. Some countries put up fences. Yes, walls. And we see right now the movement is moving forward. We see Poland and the Czech Republic have resisted Soros's policies. And Italy is getting ready to send back hundreds of thousands of immigrants, and they're going to be sending them out of the country. And I believe this is going to spread to every single European country because they don't want to be blended. And the only reason we have these refugees, these illegal immigrants moving into these areas is because this is what the globalists want. Think about this for a second. They disrupted the entire Middle East. People don't have a place to live. So we have all these refugees, like in Syria. There's like millions of them. A lot of them are in Lebanon. A lot of them are in Turkey. Now that the war is ending, these individuals can go back home. They want to go back home. They don't want to be in these other countries. Maybe the criminals do. Maybe the drug people do. Maybe the gun runners do. Maybe the pedophiles do. Maybe the rapists do. But the rest of the people, they don't want to be there. And if the country was doing their job, they would be screening these individuals to see, who are you? Where do you come from? Have you committed crimes in your other country? And again, they don't want to talk about this. So we already see the movement is moving forward right now, and other countries are starting to do what is happening here in the U.S. We see this whole Ukrainian story of an assassination is completely falling apart. And we need to go back a little bit in time here. We see that Ukraine, and there was a reporter there where there was supposed to be a hit on this reporter, and this reporter defected from Russia and was in Ukraine. And basically they staged the whole thing where they said he was dead. The wife discovered the body. It was out in the newspapers. And then we come to find out that the reporter is not dead. They said they did this to trap the Russian assassin, and this is why they did all of this. No, I think what was happening here, this was a complete false flag, and they tried to create this idea that Russia was going around assassinating people, and they can blame this on Russia, just like, the UK, same thing they did there with these Skripals, where they said Russia tried to assassinate them, and that completely backfired. And what happened here is that the assassin, the hitman that was supposed to be from Russia, turns out that he was really Ukrainian counterintelligence. Ukraine initially denied it, but then said, yeah, he's part of the counterintelligence. And the guy who hired the hitman, he is also part of the Ukrainian counterintelligence. The whole thing was a complete and utter setup to blame Russia, and it completely backfired. And it's the same thing with the Skripal case. This is why they won't let anyone see the Skripals. Yes, Yulia gave a speech, but that's about it. And it was scripted. So we see right now, all of this is falling apart. We see out in Jordan, there are protests going on. People have been injured. They're protesting against the prime minister. Why? Because the IMF is pushing austerity. The prime minister is going along with this. The people are very angry, and it looks like the prime minister now is resigning. Remember, the central banking system, they don't want to implode a country. They want to keep the country in limbo. And the only way to do this is to have the government cut programs, put austerity on the people. And what they do is they hurt the people first. And they keep hurting the people. And they keep doing this to make sure that the country doesn't implode. Because if the country does implode, who's to blame? Well, the IMF. And they don't want that to happen. And this is why the people are so angry. Because in many of these countries, they can't take any more of this. And they're going to be looking at the central bank saying, you're the ones who keep giving us more and more debt. We cannot sustain our country with all of this debt. And I think what's going to happen here, as time goes on, more and more countries are starting to wake up. And they're starting to figure out who is continually pushing all of this debt on us. It's the central banks. And we see right now, it's just beginning with Italy, Jordan. We're going to see it in Spain. The people in France, they're protesting all the time against Macron. And we see that things are rapidly falling apart in many different areas of Europe, especially with the U.S. removing itself from the Iranian nuclear deal and pushing tariffs on Europe. We see out in Qatar, it looks like they're going to be buying the S-400 missile system from Russia. And again, we're seeing a lot of countries now purchasing the S-400, because I think what is happening here is as these countries turn towards Russia, turns towards China, move away from the dollar, they're looking to protect themselves, and they don't trust the U.S.-made military assets. They're going to trust the Russian or the Chinese or anyone over there in the BRIC nations. They're going to trust mostly Russia and China. They're going to trust their systems compared to the U.S. because if they're moving towards Russia and China, they're going to use their systems to protect themselves against the deep state. And that's what they're really worried about. They're worried about the deep state coming after them. Now, we see out in Syria a large number of rebels. They are settling their cases with the government. They are now returning to civilian life. They're handing over their weapons. They're gaining back their legal status. They're handing over their automatic rifles, the RPG launchers, sniper rifles, and other munitions to the authorities. And we see it's pretty much game over for the terrorist groups. It's game over for the coalition forces. And we see right now that Turkey and U.S., it looks like they have a roadmap for Manbij, even though the State Department, the White House, I should say, continually denies it. I think things were happening behind the scenes, and they didn't want to mention it yet, but I think they're coming up with some type of deal. And I think what is happening here is there's a lot of negotiations happening behind the scenes. We already see that Iranian advisors, they were called into Damascus to discuss their role in Syria. And I believe Putin, he pushed this agenda and let the word out that all foreign troops must leave Syria. You know, he already spoke to Syria. He already spoke to Trump. He already spoke to the Chinese leaders. This was already planned from the beginning. And what they do is they let out some breadcrumbs to see how everyone's going to react. Everyone's going to get it off their chest that we're not leaving. We'll do what we want. We're going to stay there. And eventually what happens is it breaks down, and Syria, all they have to do is say, we want Iran to leave. If we ask Iran to leave, will the U.S. and the coalition forces leave? And if they both agree, guess what? The deal has been made. And I think this is where we are moving right now. And I believe this is why the Iranian advisors are there. Even if they say we're not leaving, still in the background to save face throughout the world, they're going to say we're not going to leave. But if Assad does ask us to leave, we will leave, and I think they will. Because who's behind all of this? Putin. And I think he's pushing his agenda to get the foreign troops out of Syria. Now, we see that Q is back. He went dark for a little while, and he put out a post, and this was 1440 on June 3rd. It says, boom, 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 boom. A week to remember. Dark to light. Blackout necessary. Q. Now, what's very interesting about this, there was an anon who said, wow, the shape of the way Q wrote this looks familiar. Let me turn it upside down. And when you're looking at this, and you can look at this at the on the x22report.com site, if you click on the report title, it will bring you to the report. Just scroll all the way to the bottom. I have the graphic there. If you're on YouTube, you can see the graphic there. If you turn it upside down, it looks like a gun. And we know that Q is the hammer. And it looks like that this is going to be a week to remember. The gun is to the deep state's head. And we can see we're going from dark to light. And there was a reason why there was a blackout. Now, there are anons out there who are speculating of why there was a blackout, because they're taking over the 8chan board. This is U.S. military intelligence, NSA. It looks like they're going to be taking control, so they can control what is happening on these boards. Because as we know, this is going to be a week to remember. And on June 6th, the 11th we know, the 12th, we know something big is about to happen. And I think they're preparing for all of this news. We'll have to see if this news comes out. But we can see that things are rapidly moving forward right now. And I believe we're going to see a lot more go down. Now, we see that North Korea, the summit is back on. We see there are plans now happening in Syria, in Iraq. We see Italy is saying Italy first. We're seeing that there are protests in Jordan. And this is going to spread to other countries, and this is going to continue. Remember, we still have all these indictments, and that brings me back to what Trump did back in January with his executive order allowing him to take civilians before a military tribunal. And this is 30A, Article 106A. Any person subject to this chapter who, with intent or reason to believe that it is to be used to the injury of the United States or to the advantage of a foreign nation, communicates, delivers, or transmits, or attempts to communicate, deliver, or transmits to any entity described in paragraph 2, either directly or indirectly, anything described in paragraph 3 shall be punished as a court-martial may direct, except that if the accused is found guilty of an offense that directly concerns. And Section A, nuclear weaponry, military spacecraft or satellites, early warning systems or other means of defense or retaliation against large-scale attack. B, war plans. C, communications intelligence or cryptographic information. Or D, any other major weapon systems or major element of defense strategy. The accused shall be punished by death or such other punishment as a court-martial may direct. So it's like giving uranium to the Russians, giving plans to China or to Russia, or Mueller secretly cooperating with Ukrainians or Russia, things like that. And this has all been set up to have these individuals tried. And you had to do this beforehand before you can try them. You had to clean house before you can try them. And I believe that we're getting closer and closer to the time, because it looks like we are going from dark to light. And we can see that things are changing. Remember, the deep state has been in control for a very long time. And there are still deep state operatives within government, within the intelligence agencies around the world. And to get rid of them in a year or two is very, very difficult to just go ahead and move them and push them out, because really you don't know who they are. You have to do a little bit of research. You have to understand how they were laundering money, how they were trafficking humans, how they were gun running. You had to find all of this out and put all the pieces together. and find out what they've done over time, because they've done a lot. And here we are today. All this information is now coming out, and I think it's almost time for Q to drop the hammer. And I think this is why the last post was a weapon. When you turn it upside down, his post pointing at their head saying, time is up. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.